Okay, everyone, we are now live. Mr. Mayor, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Welcome, everybody. I will call the meeting to order. Approval of the agenda. Is there any added add-ons on the agenda here tonight? Brittany?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to formally add the closed session discussions for this afternoon, further to the addendum agenda that was circulated yesterday. Specifically, we will be adding 3 separate topics. One that is advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose regarding the land claim litigations. And the following 2 items are both personal matters about identifiable individuals, one being the status of the Township CAO, and the second being compensation for the interim CAO.
Thank you, Brittany. Councillor Colbert, I believe you have something you want to add to the agenda under announcements?
Yes, just under announcements, please, and thanks.
So Brittany's aware of it, okay? So I do have somebody to move to accept the agenda. Moved by Grant, second by Paul. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Declaration of continuances. Declare anytime you see fit during the meeting. Minutes of the previous minutes. A recommendation that the minutes of the council meeting held on August 12th, 2020 be adopted. Someone move to put it on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by Councillor Colburn. If there's no discussion, all in favor of the motion? It's carried. We're down to item 5, announcements. Councillor Colburn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if the rest of you read in the, I think it was in the Sun-Times a week or so ago, an article about a youth community member from the Kemble area. His name's Gabriel Rossiter, who has started an online apparel company that's called The Belong Way, and his business is attempting to promote inclusiveness and belonging and positive mental health, and certain proceeds of his sales is going to support the local Canadian Mental Health Association. So I just thought that was a nice story to highlight youth in our community doing some good for others.
Thanks for that, Councillor Colburn. Well done. Moving, if there's no other announcements, seeing none, we move on to the agenda. Public hearings, none. Presentations, none. Delegations, none. Is there any item? I'll read the recommendation first. I'll ask if there's any item on the consent agenda that any council member would like to pull. I do not see any. So I'll read the recommendation that the consent agenda be adopted as circulated for information. Someone move and put it on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Thompson, second by Councillor Pringle. If there's no discussion, all in favor of the motion? It's carried. Correspondence, none. Committee reports, none. Staff reports. I have a recommendation that the Council of Township of Georgian Bluffs approve the hiring of an additional facility attendant for a 12-month contract in order to implement new COVID-19 protection measures at Township facilities. There's someone to move to the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by Councillor Sullivan. Cassie, do you want to speak to this?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So at our last council meeting, actually that date, we were informed that we were receiving some funding to help us with the implications of COVID-19. So this report I wrote to outline some of the funding that's already been spent or accounted for through some of the actions we put in place to help our ratepayers. So we've talked about this a few times, but we waived penalty and interest, we waived late charges on dog tags, we waived bag tags for a number of months so that people didn't have to go to the store to purchase one. We saw impact at the airport with a decrease in airport fees, and we've quantified those in this report. I'm not going to go through the detailed numbers because they're all in front of you, but if you have any questions, please ask. But a few things we haven't talked about before was PPE and safety supply purchases. So in order to get our township municipal office back up and running and get staff to work, we had to purchase a number of masks and gloves and additional sanitizers. And that so far has come to the amount of $10,389. That is an ongoing cost. We are still purchasing those things as the public health puts more and more guidelines in place of how to keep our workers and the public safe. Another purchase we made that we're going to use the COVID-19 funding for was the online council meeting equipment. So when the offices closed and gatherings were no longer required, no longer allowed, we immediately purchased live streaming equipment so that we could still move the business of the township forward. To date, that has cost us $26,000-ish. We've talked about lost arena rentals, but we've kind of given an update on what that cost looks like. Our arenas are still not open. Our facilities manager, Zach Carson, has been working towards developing policies and procedures to get the arenas open. And what he's looking at is he has started making ice, and he's looking at starting ice rentals September 14th. But in order to safely do so, staff feel that we need to hire another rec facility attendant on a temporary 1-year basis. And why we need this attendant? So when staff got back into the office, the rec department now comes in and cleans every morning all the highly touched surfaces. This was never one of their assigned tasks until COVID-19. So that does take time out of their day and their usual workload to come here and wipe everything down for us to keep staff safe. Well, similar procedures are going to have to be put in place at our facilities. So cleaning change rooms and bathrooms between each rental group, increasing time between rental groups so that we can get the COVID screening done. We can ensure one group exit before the next group enters, things like that. Because of all these procedures in place, it's going to be more of a workload on our facilities attendant, which is why we are proposing for a 1-year basis, hiring an attendant so that we can get these procedures in place. We can open our facilities to the public, and throughout the 1 year, we can find efficiencies and best practices to make this work and hopefully go down to our regular staff complement. So we'd like to take this opportunity to spend a little bit of the funding for that position.
Thanks, Cassie. Is there any questions of council? See, none. I have a question, Cassie, since Zach not here, you could answer.
Sure.
This particular person is going to be employed temporarily for a year just to look after the corporate part. I was wondering, would he be put out tractors to cut grass and stuff?
He'll be doing all of it. So he's just assisting. We have more workload because of the COVID part, but he could still do all, or she could still do all the duties of a facilities attendant. It's wherever Zach deems the extra help is needed.
Okay, is there training involved for the person to go on to a tractor to cut grass and so on? Or
yes, Zach.
Yeah,
the supervisor will make sure that the employee is appropriately trained on the pieces of equipment they'll be using.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Carlson.
Just curious, so this will be the same 35-hour work week that the rest of the facility staff are on?
Yes, but because it's a 1-year contract, there would not be benefits. There's no owners. It's just 35 hours statutory deduction.
That sounds really good. Question for Tyler.
Kathy has her hand up. Sorry, she's had it up a little.
Go ahead, Councilman Holbert. You go ahead first.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I think it sounds like a good idea. It totally makes sense to me. I guess my question is around hiring and how this individual, do we have someone already on staff on a casual basis that would be bumped into that kind of position, or are we going to post that and have people submit application?
So, given the urgency of needing the position with facilities tentatively opening September 14th, we've actually already posted the position with a big tagline on the bottom saying subject to council's approval. So the position has been advertised. We do not have any casual staff except for our snow removal people, our seasonal guys. So chances are it will be an external person unless someone else from the union decides to jump to that position for the 1-year contract. But yes, we are looking external.
Thanks, Cassie. Yeah, that answers that question. I just want to make sure that we're giving equal opportunity to folks we may not know about who are out there and not just making assumptions about who might be hired for that position. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other questions of council? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion before us? It's carried. Moving on our agenda.
Mr. Mayor, if I can just interject.
Go ahead.
As Councillor Barfoot does not have her video enabled, if we can ask for Councillor Barfoot's dictated vote prior to taking the call of votes by hand, that way we can indicate that she's for or against each motion. So for clarity, Councillor Barfoot, are you opposed to or in support of hiring of the new facility attendant?
I support the motion.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a recommendation here that the Township of Georgian Bluffs approve extending the existing management contract for Lomax Group for management services at the Wharton Keppel International Airport to December 31st, 2020. Someone to move put on the floor, please. It would be Deputy Mayor Carlton and Councilor Barfoot. Would you like to second that motion?
I'll second it.
Thank you. I guess this, Cassie, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So pre-COVID, the plan was to hire Lumex for a 6-month period, and in the meantime, have some airport conversations and some public meetings to decide how we were going to operate the airport going forward, and if we were going to operate the airport going forward. Due to COVID, those meetings have been canceled. So what staff are recommending is that we extend the contract with the Lumex to the end of the year, December 31st, under the same terms and conditions that are currently in place, allowing us time to have those conversations again. Yeah, that's all we're asking.
Is there any questions on the motion before us? Councilor Barfoot, do you have a question? Victoria,
Yeah,
go ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, just bring me up to date on this. Have we been advertising for an airport manager other than Max?
No. So we were waiting to determine if council wanted to go with a management company or hiring an airport manager again, similar to what we had before. And that was part of the discussions we were going to have with the bigger questions about the airport. And unfortunately, we haven't been able to have those discussions at this time.
Cassie, please point out to when this existing contract expires. It's September, you know?
Yes.
And that's why we had to pass this motion, because we need to extend the contract to cover. Does that make sense?
I can't remember the exact date. You're asking my memory. Just a second.
It says in the report expires August 31st.
Okay. Yep. Sorry, I didn't have the report open. Thank you.
Yeah, I knew, so that's why we have to extend it. If there's no other questions on the motion before us, all in favor? All in favor? Councillor Thompson, are you in favor?
If I can interject, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Thompson has just indicated that he had to leave the meeting for 5 minutes, so
Okay.
he is no longer with us. So Councillor Barfoot, if you could please dictate your vote.
Carol, are you in favor or opposed?
In favor.
Thank you. Councillor Coburn, I did not see your hand because your screen was Like, are you in favor or opposed? Oh, good, okay. And Ryan's, okay, the motion is carried. We are now down to Bridge Rehabilitation Consulting Services. This report is for information for council, and Tyler, I believe you're going to speak to it.
Thank you, Mayor Burley. Yeah, staff inadvertently asked WSB to proceed with the tendering process. And again, this is a very common report that comes year after year. And basically this report would allow WSB to be sole sourced as they do our oldest roads. In other words, all of our bridge inspections and reports to it. I basically came across it when I was preparing the report for the bridge rehabilitation work. So I wanted to bring that to council's attention as soon as I came across it, and just make them aware that it won't be happening in the future again, but this is the situation we find ourselves in now.
So this is mainly for information for council.
That's correct.
Does council have any questions? I see blank screen up here, so I have no idea if members are, okay, there's Paul. It's different. Does council have any questions on the Tyler's report? See none. Councilor Thompson, are you there?
Councillor Thompson has stepped out of the meeting. He will return in 5 minutes.
Councilor Barfoot?
Tyler, whereabouts is the location of this bridge?
Yep, thank you, Councilor Barfoot. This is actually, it's in that next report as well. This is where I'll be addressing the actual location and the selection process. But it's, I'm just getting confused with these things. This is,
Councilor Thompson or Councilor Barfoot, would you mind waiting until I read the next motion and Tyler would have that information to give to you?
18 Acres Road.
Sorry, what'd you say, Tyler?
Indian Acres Road, so right off at concession 10.
Indian Acres Road. Okay, okay.
Okay, I'm going to move on to the next recommendation we have before us. The council award tender 2020-09 for the structural rehabilitation of bridge structure S001 to Allen Hastings at the price of $125,848.50 plus HST as specified in the tender documents. Someone move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councilor Colburn, second by Councilor Franco. Tyler, you want to speak to this?
Thank you, Mayor Burley. Yeah, so this is the work that WSP did to prepare the tender package. It was advertised on the Township's website. We only received 2 tenders for this bridge rehabilitation work. And every year we allocate $200,000 to try and get on top of our aging infrastructure, which has been working, and we're seeing the results of that. There was quite a difference between the 2 contractors. Just for a bit of a side note, it's been a very difficult year getting contractors to bid on projects, especially at the beginning. We've seen large variance with contractors being hesitant, if not bidding very high. So from operations department, we decided to tender late this year and let COVID settle down. I think we're seeing the results of that. We got a very reasonable, very reasonable price coming in at $125,848.50, and that is of course plus the non-construction costs from WSP, which involves contract administration and inspection of $18,000. So this total will bring us to $144,686 out of the $200,000 that we had budgeted this year for this work. I'd be happy to entertain any questions or comments from council.
Thanks, Tyler. Does council have any questions? Deputy Mayor Carlton.
I'm just curious as to what exactly is being done with that bridge. Is that one where we're only doing the top part of it?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Calvin. It's actually a guide rail failure. It's got concrete guide rails on it as well, so there's a couple sections that will be replaced and repaired. Atypically, it's the joint sealers as well. So those are kind of things that go right off the bat on our bridges. That keeps water outside of our bearing plates, as well as top coating and approaches. And I should mention the guide rail approaches as well. So it's kind of the whole thing. In previous years, with previous director, our previous staff, they've tried to do 2 or 3 bridges a year by streamlining with separate contractors. This year, this bridge was budgeted and had enough that we just decided to take on one this year and get it just complete.
Thanks, Tyler. Does the council have any questions? Well, Paul, go ahead, Paul.
Thank you. Tyler, so this work will be completed by the end of this year, or will it commence next year? That's part one of my question. The other part, I guess, would be, we're spending all the money for those two structures this year. What about the 2 structures that we have been looking at for quite a while? I think one of them was S003. I think the other one was the Derby D005 that we temporarily closed. So I was just curious on what the status of those 2 would be, I guess, too. Thanks.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's an excellent question, Mr. Councilor Soto. So those 2 structures in particular that you mentioned, they're in the process of the EA study. So this is where we've kind of let them go to that point where they had to be closed, and now we have to go through the appropriate processes to find the best solution to either fix or replace these structures. So it's almost like 2 different capital budgets. So for this bridge rehabilitation work, we're trying to keep up with all our existing structures. And with WSP and their OSMs, they basically said it's not, this isn't the time. We need a full reassessment. They might be too, I don't want to exclude the option, but they may be too far gone to actually use the word rehabilitation. So again, we're waiting the next 3 weeks to hear back from the CA study. It has been stalled up because both of them got caught up in a heritage assessment. And again, this is going to be followed up by a public meeting portion of the EA. So that information will need to follow here. Again, with WSP, what they do, they're actually doing the OSMs again this year. Is by law, they have to do it every 2 years. And they create a list for us, basically options of 2 or 3. And us utilizing our consulting engineers, they provide good options on what structures really need it and benefit. And this is coming from a structural engineer, and it seems to be the best case. For my choice this year, I basically had 3 choices, and they all were equal candidates. And I decided to go ahead with East London as it looked like the appropriate candidate this year.
Does that answer your question, Councilor Sullivan?
Yes, it does. Thank you, Tyler. Appreciate it.
Does council have any other questions? I see blank screens. Councilor Colburn and Councilor Barfoot, do you have any questions?
No, I don't, Mr. Mayor. And in fact, if I do, I'll just use my hand raising function on this platform rather than switching on and off from video.
Okay, Brittany can let me know then. Okay, thank you. I see no questions or anything coming forward, so all in favor of the motion before us? It's carried.
Councilor Barfoot, can you please dictate your vote in support or in opposition to the motion?
In support.
Okay. We're down to our next recommendation that the council direct staff to continue operating Sachackley Park as an open green space for passive recreational purposes and further to implement methods of restricting vehicle access to shoreline, including installation of barriers and signage. Someone move to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councilor Thompson, second by Deputy Mayor Carlton. Who's going to speak to this since Zach's on here? Tyler?
I'm actually here on Teams, so.
Oh, sorry, Tyler. Go ahead, Tyler. Or Zach, sorry. Can't see you, but there you are.
All right. Yeah, so this is a report I'm bringing back at Committee of the Whole back at the start of August. On August 5th, Council requested a report back on basically the future use of Sutacrity Park. We heard from some members of the public about some of the various uses that they've been seeing and experiencing out there. We're gonna just take a look back at sort of some of the history of the park to begin here. And we heard some of the stuff back at Committee of the Whole. The park is, in fact, two properties. There's Block 41, which was the original block of land that was dedicated by the developer as open space. And then there's a second piece of property there that is commonly referred to as a boat launch or the beach. This land was conveyed to the township for the purpose of locating a pump house for a communal shore well. It has been decommissioned. As you know, that area is connected to the East Linton water system now. The casing does still exist there, but they aren't connected. As council heard during Committee of the Whole, there's this small area in particular experiences some incompatible uses. There's recreational activities going on the shoreline. There's people canoeing and kayaking. There's people taking part in passive recreation, such as just sunbathing and just enjoying that area on the Georgian Bay shoreline there. But then there's also a little bit of, I guess, what could be considered commercial use. There's vehicles backing down into that area, pumping water out. Then there's fishermen that are launching boats in that area. And as you know, there's no parking on the property in that area. And occasionally we end up with mixed use happening there. There's vehicles coming in and out, parking, staying, and then there's families and young kids running around in that area from the roadway or from the park area up above. As you've seen in that area, there isn't much of an entranceway. There is some gravel, but there's very minimal maintenance done to promote traffic in and out there, I guess you can say. We don't really look after cutting the trees back to improve sight lines or anything that are up on the roadway. So there's an obvious safety concern if motorized vehicles are permitted to continue accessing this property. I added some notes in this report, just looking back at some of the history, including the Sarawak official plan, how they identified the park as a picnic area for passive recreation. There was never any mention of shoreline access for motorized use. So as we carry on in the report, you'll see we are recommending that there is a prohibition of vehicles going forward for this shoreline, mostly for the risks that are posed by this the mixed use. Just very incompatible, promoting the passive recreation nature of that park while also allowing motorized vehicles, especially ones pulling trailers and accessing basically in and out. I highlighted some parts of the township's road allowance policy, some items in there that definitely pop up, including things like protection of the environment and public access, and then things like not erecting docks or any structures on an open shore allowance, impeding access. So just continuing on, it would be very minimal financial impact to block off that area. What I'm suggesting is keeping it very simple and natural, not putting big gates and fences in that, because that can become a maintenance expense. We know fences get climbed and torn down or run into, backed into. But by simply putting in some rocks, some cedar posts, you can make it look, you're not going to diminish the natural state, as I said in the report. Even placing rocks strategically, you can add to sort of some natural seeding. The area will also continue to see its weekly maintenance, grass cutting and garbage pickup, and possibly even see some introduction of a few more pieces of passive recreation equipment, things like bike racks that can promote biking to the park, picnic tables that can attract more people to the park for that reason. So that's the gist of the report. Basically, just reporting back following that meeting back in the early part of August, and recommending that we follow through with measures to prohibit the vehicle access, and then introduce some signage there to recognize the park more as a township facility, as well as highlight the permissible activities, as well as the activities that I'm proposing we don't promote anymore.
Thank you, Zach. Does council have any questions of Zach's report?
I just
Yes.
have a comment.
Go ahead, Carol.
Okay, Zach, thank you for describing what you're going to do so well. I just don't want people to believe that this park is only for the people that live in that area. Any signage should not refer at all towards a private park. This is a township facility, and I just want to make sure that people know it's a township facility, not strictly for the use of some people. Thank you.
Excellent comments, Councilor Burford. Did I see any other hands up? Kathy, go ahead. I see it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Zach. I think it's a great report, and the recommendations are solid for sure. And maybe this is something you're going to be reporting back on later too, but if I recall correctly, I believe some of the residents also had some concerns about some debris that was in the open space, and I forget what it was exactly, but like logs or branches. And was there some cement debris and roots? Is it within our purview to try to remove any of that and try to clean the space up so it can be enjoyed a little bit better as well?
Yeah, there was mention of some debris there, and I know for a fact staff picked some of it up today. I haven't been down there for a little bit just to see what state it is in. I've had some discussions with some of the residents about some of the ongoing activity there, and the high water and how it can affect things if tree removal is considered, and any land alterations, which obviously we don't want to do on the shore road allowance. Yeah, no, we want to make the space as safe as possible. Obviously, we don't want debris, cement, anything like that. Just to add to that, I did have some discussions about the No, it's you find yourself out in this park in particular, and you speak to somebody new every time that has some some history or some advice for that park. It's just one of those properties. It's a little bit further out of the way than some of our other ones, so it's going to get a little bit of attention just to make sure that it's safe and being used, I guess, appropriately.
Thank you.
Councilor Sullivan, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Zach, for the report. Very well done. So I'm fortunate that I live about three-quarters of a mile away from this little facility that we have, and our staff do keep a very nice job of it. I'm not sure I completely agree with closing of the boat launch part of it. I do drive by this quite frequently, and there is a lot of boats, Sea-Doos, and a lot of people too that just park there with their pickup trucks or SUVs and drop off their kayaks or canoes. I kind of think that is a recreational sport that a lot of people have taken up, especially this year with COVID-19, because it's one of those ones where you can still be socially distanced from everybody. So I disagree a little bit with just closing it down. I don't think that's quite proper. I think we're going to get a lot of feedback on that. And also the other one, just for maybe enhancing it, the old well casing that's there, is there, and I don't know if there's stuff still in it or what's going on. Is there a way that we can, either A1 remove it or maybe cover it up with some more stones? There is a bit more room there. I'm looking for your some direction on that one to see what your thoughts are, or maybe you've looked into it already.
That's something I would definitely need to consult Tyler and see whether that's a possibility of removal. Definitely, I guess it could be considered a bit of an eyesore there, especially if it's not necessarily in use. I'm not sure if there's any active water line that still runs through it or anything like that, but I would have to consult with Tyler and possibly other utilities to see if that's something that we can do.
Tyler, any comment?
Thank you, sir. No, just that I can definitely start looking into that. There's always two options to either abandoning or a lot of people with a structure that size, sometimes it's easier to decommission it by filling full of grit and burying it. It's only showing about 1 foot up top, and that's always a possibility as well. It'd be less restrictive, but I'd be happy to bring that back to council.
Okay, thank you. Grant?
Yeah, thanks. Zach, yeah, great report there. I'm kind of along the lines of Paul there too on parking availability for people to offload kayaks and stuff too and do it safely. That was, Paul kind of got me thinking there that is there a spot where we can be off the road safely and unload kayaks and canoes and, not restrict the road situation?
Ideally, we'd place the barriers in such a way that the vehicles can pull off to the side of the road there for drop off of canoes and kayaks and things like that. There is space on the shoulder of the road there that we don't have to get the barriers right up snug to the road by any means, but providing just sort of a safe pull off location, I think, for getting a vehicle or two off the road for a short period of time, I think is reasonable.
Good, thanks, Zach.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Carlton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question has to do with the picnic tables you put in. With all the kind of focus on accessibility now, would they be just regular picnic tables or would they be a style that would allow for some handicap access to them? And is this a park, I've been by it, but I'm not super familiar. Is it one where handicapped people can get in off the road and get into the park itself?
So our picnic tables for this year actually just came in, and not quite half of them that were ordered were accessibly designed, where a person who uses a wheelchair can actually use either end of the table to sit and use the tabletop. So that's definitely something we take into consideration when we're ordering our picnic tables, is to make sure that we do get accessible picnic tables. There isn't necessarily a developed pathway into this location at this point. I know this conversation came up, I guess, during the last meeting about access down from the top area to the lower section, and I believe it was our planner that brought sort of some thoughts forward about the difficulties of doing that, and I'll just, I guess, sort of share some of my thoughts as well. Any really developed, if it's going to be a boardwalk or something along those lines, I'm somewhat hesitant to do that, especially with the high water. Any infrastructure that we would put down close to that water, I've already seen some pictures and videos of some of the recent storms hitting that area and how high the waters come up. But obviously accessibility is a concern, and it for sure is something that we can look at to make sure that everybody can use this facility. Definitely up top on the actual open space, it's a flat run off of the roadway. There's no pathways or gravel-based trails or anything to get in. It is flat, and I think it's reasonable to be able to get into that area if you want to have a picnic up top, and we can always look at making our facilities even better if that's the case.
I have a question for Zach, Mr. Mayor.
Hello, everyone. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties here, so if everybody can just bear with us for a few minutes. Sorry, we just completely lost you in council chambers, so we'll let you know when we're back up and running. Just bear with us.
Thank you, Brent.
Okay, everyone, we are now back. Sorry about that. We had some technical difficulties. Mr. Mayor, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. Zach, I'm not sure if you answered your last question. I'm not even sure where you were. Could you mind repeating back your brain back a few minutes and repeat it again?
Was this, I think we're at the questions about the accessible picnic tables.
That is correct.
Okay. Yep. And so yeah, we last year when we ordered our picnic tables, we got almost half of them were designed to be accessible. And we just got our order in for this year's picnic tables as well. And we ordered them the same way this year where I think right around half of them that we ordered are actually designed with accessible standards. So they're built in such a way that allow people who use wheelchairs to use either end of the table while they're using them. Definitely placing them up top in the actual open space is flat access from the roadway. There isn't any firm gravel pathways or anything like that from the roadway at this point, but possibly something we could review going forward if we feel it's a need at this facility.
Thanks, Zach. If we no other questions, I don't see.
I have a question for Zach.
Go ahead, Carol.
Zach, when you're talking about picnic tables, were any of them scheduled to go to Cedar Hill Park? And did we get the boat launch there corrected? Because that can handle a lot of the traffic from Presqu'île.
We can definitely, and we were planning on diverting some of the new stock of picnic tables to Cedar Hill. We recognize that they were lacking there as well. We've been removing a lot of damaged picnic tables. Some of the old completely wooden structure picnic tables have sort of reached their life expectancy, and we get rid of them as soon as we see that they can become a bit of a hazard. So definitely, especially with how busy Cedar Hill has seemed to have become, there's a big need for more tables in that location. We will be diverting some of the new stock there. The second question you brought up, I believe, had to do with the water access at Cedar Hill.
Yes.
Now, that's not necessarily a water access that, at least in my history or in this department, we've ensured has been cleared and made way for boat or vehicle access. I believe, and Tyler can fill me in if I'm wrong here, that's a road allowance that goes down to the water, sort of similar to a couple other locations, I guess, in the township. That's an actual road allowance that continues down from Grey Road 1 to the water. I'm not sure what our typical maintenance standards are for something like that.
Thank you, Zach. Carol, did that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you, Zach.
Okay. If there's no other questions, Brittany, I'm asking for a recorded vote on this motion.
Okay, when I call your name, please indicate whether you are for or against the motion as presented. Councillor Carol Barfoot.
For.
Councillor Paul Sutherland.
Opposed.
Councillor Kathy Markover.
For.
Councillor Ryan Thompson.
For.
Councillor Grant Pringle.
For.
Deputy Mayor Sue Carlton.
For.
And Mayor Dwight Burley.
Opposed.
Thank you, and that carries 5-2.
Thank you. Moving on for agenda, our next recommendation is that the Council adopt bylaw 2020-85 being a bylaw to accept the conveyance of land from 1892866 Ontario Incorporated, care of Daryl Wolsom to Squall, etc., so that lot addition application B0919 approved by the Committee of Adjustment can be registered. Something's moved to put it on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by Councillor Thompson. Is there any discussion on the motion, or Devin? Devin, do you want to comment on this?
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is pretty straightforward, so I'll keep it short and sweet. The report is in regards to bylaw 2020-085, which the purpose and effect of the bylaw is to spoil a severance, which will facilitate a lot addition. It is worth mentioning that both the zoning bylaw amendment and B0919 have been approved. This is essentially the final step in registering the lot. So in order to spoil that severance, this is required. If there's any questions, I'm happy to entertain those, but it's pretty straightforward. Council probably is familiar with this kind of application from previous applications.
Thank you, Devin. Does council have any questions on this motion? Carol, do you have any questions? I don't see Kathy.
No, I don't.
Kathy? No? Okay. All in favor of the motion before us?
For.
Thank you, Carol. It's carried. Moving on our agenda. Madam Clerk, was there any public question come through?
No, we did not receive any public questions.
Thank you. No zoning bylaws, other bylaws. I have a recommendation The bylaw number 2020-85 being a bylaw to accept claims of land described as concession to part lot 18 RP 16R 11422 part 2 in the geographic township of Sarawak to spoil the severance that created the lot and permit the lot addition created through severance application D0919 be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor, clerk, and sealed with the corporation endorsement bylaw. Someone to move, put it on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Sullivan, second by Councillor Barfoot. Is there any discussion on the motion before it? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion?
For.
Councillor Barfoot. Was that Carol? Yeah. Okay, thank you. The motion is carried. We are down to the next recommendation. The bylaw 2020-86 being a bylaw to authorize execution of a combined household solid waste and recycling contract, collection contract with Waste Management of Canada Corporation. To be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor, clerk, seals the seal of the corporation, endorsed in the bylaw. Someone's moved, put on the floor, please. Mayor Carlton, second by Councillor Barfoot. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Councillor Barfoot, are you opposed or in favor?
For.
Thank you. The motion is carried.
Sorry, Councillor Paul Sutherland, could you please indicate your support verbally?
For.
Thank you. Our next bylaw, that's bylaw number 2020-85 being a bylaw to authorize execution of a structural rehabilitation contract with WSP Canada Incorporated to be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed the mayor, clerk, seals and sealed the corporation, and endorsed in the bylaw. Someone's moved, put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Pringle, second by Councillor Colburn. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion? Councillor Barber, are you opposed or in favor?
I'm just reading the motion again, and it needs some explanation to me.
Okay. Tyler, you want to speak to it?
Thank you, Councillor Barfoot, and Mayor. Unfortunately, I was trying to bring the same report to this council as pass the bylaw under the same one. I meant to mention that during my report. Time is of the essence, bringing this forward and for the completion dates, getting it done this year. But this is the agreement that will execute our structural rehabilitation for our 2020 work.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Barber?
Not really.
Can you try again to explain the motion?
Yes, certainly, Mr. Mayor. So this bylaw directly correlates with our staff report of 2020-37. Basically, we went out for tender with WSP. They came in with two tender bidders, lowest being Allen Hastings at a price of $125,000. So our intention here is to complete the work this year, award the contract to Allen Hastings with WSP doing the contract administration portions. And again, atypically, we always try to bring a bylaw in a couple of weeks to give councils full consideration. You'll have to excuse me for that, but it's been a busy year. And this is the bylaw that's presented here. So I'm actually bringing the reports and the bylaw all in the same meeting.
Councillor Barfoot, does that answer your question?
Well, it's just when you refer to bylaw 2037, how many bylaws that was ago. So it's nice to sort of briefly tell us what we're passing.
Sorry, Council, if I could just interject. Councillor Barfoot, as indicated on the agenda, bylaw 2020-87 correlates with item 13.4 on this agenda, meaning report OPS 2020-37.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
I think this has to do with the bridge on Indian River Road, number S001, if that helps Carol, just so you know which one it's for.
Carol, does that help your question?
I take the vote.
All in favor of the motion before us? Opposed? Is there anyone, Carol, can you indicate your vote, please?
For.
Councillor Colbert?
Yes, I had my hand up, but yes, I'm for.
Thank you. Motion was carried. Okay, we're down to unfinished business. A recommendation, whereas council consider correspondence from the Township of Perth regarding a review of farm property class tax rebate tax rate program at their meeting on August 12, 2020. Now therefore, Council of Township of Georgian Bluffs supports the Township of Perth in their request for a review of the structure of the farm property tax class rate program, and further that Council also supports Council of the County of Grady in their request for the same, further to Resolution CW 8420 as approved at their meeting on May 14, 2020, and that this motion be circulated to the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs, Bruce Grady, Owen Sound MP Alec Ruff, MPP Bill Walker, Ontario Federation of Agriculture, the Green County Federation of Agriculture, the National Farmers Union, and the Christian Farmers Federation of Ontario, and all Ontario municipalities. Someone to move with the motion on the floor, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlson, second by Councillor Sullivan. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Councillor Sullivan. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm having a bit of a hard time hearing you, Dwight. It's a little bit muffled. I'm not sure if something's changed or not, but it's just a little bit kind of echoey.
Okay, Councillor Sullivan, I'll get a little closer to the mic. Did you have a question on the motion, or you were just pointing that out? Okay. Does council have any questions? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion before us? It's carried. Councillor Barfoot, please indicate your vote.
I raised my hand.
Oh, sorry. Okay, thank you. Moving on to our agenda, whereas the next recommendation is whereas Council of Georgian Bluffs considered correspondence from the City of Owen Sound regarding Bill M36 regarding Emancipation Day in Canada, and their meeting on August 12, 2020. Now, therefore, Council of Township of Georgian Bluffs acknowledges and supports the following private members' bill put forward by who might need a hand to pronounce that. Maybe Joey. Madam Clerk, I'm not sure just how to pronounce that.
Majid Johari.
Okay, thank you. M36 Emancipation Day, 43rd Parliament, first session that read as follows. But the House recognizes that the British Parliament abolished slavery in the British Empire as of August 1, 1834. 2. Slavery exists in British North America prior to abolition abolished in 1834. 3. Abolitions and other who struggled against slavery include those who arrived in Upper and Lower Canada by the Underground Railroad, have historically celebrated August 1st as Emancipation Day. 4. The Government of Canada announced on January 30th, 2018, that it would officially recognize the United Nations International Decade for People of African Descent to highlight the important contribution that people of African descent have made to Canada's society and to provide a platform for confronting anti-Black racism. 5. The heritage of Canada, people of Africa descendants, and the contributors they have made and continue to make to Canada, and in the opinion of the House, the government should designate August 1 of every year as Emancipation Day in Canada, and support for this motion be sent to Bruce Gray, Owen Sound, MP Alec Roth, and MPP Bill Walker, and all municipalities in Ontario. That's it. So someone move on the floor, please. Move by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by Councilor Pringle. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? See none, all in favor of the motion?
In favor?
Thank you, Councilor Barfoot. It's carried. Our next recommendation, whereas Council of Georgian Bluffs considered correspondence from the town of Orangeville requesting support for the motion regarding requirements for police service throughout the province. Now therefore, the Council of Georgian Bluffs supports the town of Orangeville in their request for common training requirements for all members of police service in Ontario as it relates to diversity, empathy, use of force, and that support for this motion be sent to the Solicitor General's office in all municipalities in Ontario. There is somebody to move the motion on the floor, please. Moved by Councilor Thompson, second by Deputy Mayor Carlton. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion?
For?
Thanks, Carol. Carried. Our next recommendation, whereas Council of Township of Georgian Bluffs consider correspondence from the town of Amherstburg and the Township of South Glengarry at their meeting on August 12, 2020 regarding improvements to long-term care homes and standards of said homes across the province. Now therefore, the Council of the Township of Georgian Bluffs supports the resolution from the town of Amherstburg and the Township of South Glengarry, and further requests that the province of Ontario review long-term care standards throughout the province, and that copies of this resolution be circulated to Ministry of Long-Term Care, Bruce Gray, Owen Sound, MP Alec Ruff, MPP Bill Walker, Council of the County Gray, and all municipalities. Someone to move, put it on the floor, please. Moved by Councilor Sutherland, second by Councilor Barfoot. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion?
In favor?
Thank you. The motion's been carried. We're down to new business. Verbal update from the Director of Operations regarding rescue erosion control matters. Tyler?
Thank you, Mayor Burley. We've unfortunately taken on some damage from a northeast storm about 2 or 3 weeks ago. It's located just south of Sujakarvi Park that we were talking about today on Rescue Road. We're in the process of getting permits and reaching out to contractors and trying to get estimates. Of course, our deadline is September 30th for all in-water works this year, which this is. Bringing this to council's attention, as I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to bring an appropriate report to you. and or be able to follow our purchasing procedures at this time. Considering this is an emergency repair, and I think there is a real risk in this particular location of, or I should say, potential of road failure. With that being said, I'd be happy to answer any questions or concerns council may have, but this is more of a, under the works right now, my anticipated cost will be around $50,000 or $60,000.
Thank you, Tyler. Does council have any questions? Councilor Sullivan?
Tyler, thank you for this. Will there be any road closures during the times of the repair, or do we know that yet? I guess it's kind of hard to speculate that, but I just wondered if there would be, and if we'd be notifying residents in the area that there would be.
Yes, thank you for that, Councillor Sutherland. I predict there will be. One of the reasons why we can't do it in-house is the reach of the machine. So we'd have to actually put a gravel pad over top of our existing pavement structure to protect it and bring in larger equipment that I believe will require us to close the road for a small portion. But I expect a 2-day operation to go in through here. It's really the cost of the large rock coming in and the placement. Again, doing our best. We have multiple estimates to bring forward to the council, but we have other shoreline work that will be better scheduled. It's just our timeline this year, and trying to get this particular section fixed up is a definite weakness we have there.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Councilor?
Yes, it does. Thank you, Tyler.
I guess I'm going to ask the treasurer or Tyler, where does this come out of the budget? What portion does this go through? Do we have a separate item for that, or?
To be determined. So we are waiting for that costing to come back, and then Tyler and I will sit down and decide how it's to be funded. We will try our best to fund it from his existing budget, but if it's an overage, it'll have to come from reserves. In Tyler's opinion, this is emergency work, and it cannot wait till 2021.
Oh, understand. Okay. Does council have any other questions on the report before us, or the discussion? Tyler?
Just one more. I should have led with we're at historic high water levels. So that's the root of this problem. We had a couple storms that can't come in, and it's just been that year for us. So again, it's a little unprecedented with how high the water is, and that's why we've had this particular failure. I just want to rest assured everybody else that our road systems are in good shape, and we're just making sure that we're on top of this particular situation.
Thank you, Tyler. So moving on, we're down to closed session. Brittany, did you want to comment on the motion?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Thompson is raising his hand.
Oh, sorry. I didn't see you. Go ahead, Tom. Councilor Thompson.
Thank you. I would just like to add a note of good work or congratulations to Tyler and the staff. I've noticed with these flash rains that we've been having, there's some particularly challenging roads, and Coles Side Road at the top of, I guess I'd say just north of Concession 24. The hill there is particularly hard because all the gravel in a big rain runs down to the bottom of the hill, and it leaves bare rock exposed. And I've just happened to travel that road a lot lately to get to our farm property, and I often see it washed out one day and repaired the next. So congratulations to that. That's a lot of work, and you guys have been really responsive.
Thank you for that, Councilor Thompson. Madam Clerk, did you want to make a comment before I read this next recommendation? We're going to closed session.
Yes, please. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to indicate for the record that the closed session motion as indicated on the agenda does not include the inclusion of Township Council and Consultant Wendy Hunter in closed session discussions. So I would like that motion to be amended to reflect such. Township Council and the consultant will be present for the first discussion of closed session, and then we'll leave the closed session discussions. So through you, Mr. Chair, the motion will be amended to read that the interim CAO/treasurer, acting clerk, HR manager, Township Legal Counsel, and consultant Wendy Hunter remaining in the room to discuss such and such.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'm going to read this recommendation that the Council of Township of Georgian Bluffs move into closed session at 5:15 PM with interim CAO, treasurer, acting clerk, HR manager, counsel for our NEMA and claims, and our consultant Wendy Hunter remain in the room to discuss advice that is subject to solicitor client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, land claim investigation, personal matters about identifiable individuals, status of the township CAO, and personal matters about identifiable individual interim CAO compensation. If someone moves to the floor, please. Moved by Councilor Sullivan, second by Councilor Colbert. There's no discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion? Councilor Barfoot, are you in favor?
In favor.
Okay, the motion is carried. We will take a 5-minute break so you can change your screens. Okay.
If you all wish you luck.
Good night.
Good evening.
You still in an hour and want to drive home?
That's okay.
She was leaving office.
She said mine to be here and there.
What's that way? I'm only 5 minutes up the road, some nights I get home, it's like.
I don't know. Everybody asks me how I like driving pleasure. I love it.
Yeah.
35 minutes down the line.
Yeah, put on a good song, crank it up,
Right.
just,
I'm coffee and away to go.
that's what Mike said about his drive to work to King Garden, he's like, I always try to say this one song.
Oh.
That's what I do when I go home at night. I drive so slow, I just cruise along there and just take my time.
Not you.
You don't know how to drive slow.
You obviously need to get your gauges checked on the
Brian, hold on, I'm getting a hold of Carol. Counselor Thompson, Counselor Barfoot. Here, please. Okay. So for those members that are attending virtually, we have had some difficulties getting a hold of Counselor Barfoot. We will move ahead without Counselor Barfoot. We are doing all we can to get a hold of her. However, we do have quorum without both herself and Counselor Sutherland. So Brian, go ahead and turn on the live stream. Okay, everyone, we are now live. Mr. Mayor, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We only went in camera to discuss what we went in to discuss, nothing more. I have a motion here.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, we have a few things coming out of closed session, so I just want to ensure that you're going to address those.
Okay, do you want me to read this motion first, or do you want to, how do you want me to handle this?
Yes, please. So as a result of closed session, council will be considering a bylaw that through council we have added to this point of the agenda as a result of closed session discussions. That is bylaw 2020-92, being a bylaw to appoint an interim CAO and deputy clerk, and further to repeal bylaw 2020-79.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I do not see that last part of what you said on this motion, but
It's reflected on the bylaw.
okay, thank you. I have a bylaw 2020-92, being a bylaw to appoint interim CAO and deputy clerk to be read as first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed the corporation endorsed in the bylaw book. The motion does not reflect who, it just says appoint.
Correct. The bylaw appoints a chief administrative officer and a deputy clerk. The bylaw reflects that it is Cassandra Rocca. We do not identify who is being appointed in the motion.
Thank you. I need someone to move the motion, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlson, second by Councilor Pringle. Any discussion on the motion before us? All in favor of the motion? Councilor Colburn, can you indicate? Yeah, okay, thank you. The motion has been carried. Do we have another item that we discussed in camera we need to bring forward?
Yes, we do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, I have drafted the following motion as a result of closed session discussions regarding compensation for the interim CAO. So again, through you, Mr. Chair, whereas Cassandra Rocca, Treasurer/Director of Finance, has been appointed interim CAO effective August 31st, 2020. Now, therefore, council hereby directs that the interim CAO be compensated at the third salary step for the CAO position as currently defined in the township pay grid.
Thank you, Brittany. Do you have someone to move the motion, please? Moved by Councilor Pringle, second by Councilor Colburn. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? It is carried. Was there any other item we need to bring forward?
There is no other items as a result of closed session. However, with council's indulgence, I do have one item to add to the agenda, please. So if everyone could just give a show of hands in support of allowing this addition at this point in the agenda, please. Councilor Colburn and Councilor Ryan Thompson, are you okay with my adding an addition at this point?
I'm sorry, did we know what the addition is? I can't, maybe you told us.
Sorry, I'll clarify. After passing bylaw 2020, sorry, let me just clarify here. Sorry, I have to go back in my notes. Bylaw 2020-87, we identified that there was an error in said bylaw. So just to jog your memories, you passed bylaw 2020-87 in the open portion of this meeting prior to close. It is the bylaw that enters into a contract with what I referenced as WSP Canada Incorporated. That is incorrect. It should read Allen Hastings Incorporated, as they have been awarded the contract. So through you, Mr. Chair, I would like to make the correction in this meeting so that it is not pushed off any further entering into this contract. So again, through you, Mr. Chair, I am proposing the following motion. That resolution number 2020-244, which is the resolution number that enacted bylaw 2020-87, be amended to remove WSP Canada Incorporated and reflect Allen Hastings Incorporated as indicated in the awarding contract, and that bylaw 2020-87 be amended to reflect the same prior to signing of the mayor and clerk.
And could somebody to move to put it on the floor, please? Moved by Deputy Mayor Carlton, second by Councilor Coburn. Is there any discussion on this motion? All in favor of the motion? It's carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Those are all of my things.
Okay. I have another recommendation here, the bylaw 2020-88 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council on September 2nd, 2020 be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed to seal the corporation, and endorsed on the bylaw book. Do I have someone to put the motion on the floor, please? Moved by Councilor Pringle, second by Councilor Coburn. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Thank you. It's carried. I need one more motion. Motion to adjourn by Deputy Mayor Carlton. Oh, and Council Thompson. All in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.